ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا سبحان من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Where's AbdurRazzaaq? He was just here, just seen him. We went to the bathroom or something. Oh, okay. As we continue in the Masail, which were very important in the last part of the chapter. So if everyone would turn to the last part of the book, or excuse me, the last part of the chapter of seeking blessing by a tree or rock or anything similar to it. As we started on the Masail, the actual Masail, or the questions in the, not the issues, we were saying the questions that were asked in the last part of the chapter, which the great Imam al-Mujaddid, that he does in every chapter in order for the talib al-ilm to get him acclimated towards understanding what were the actual benefits that was extracted from the text and why he used them and for what he used them for. What was the reasons? For verily this actually allows the student the knowledge of the one who's studying these matters for the information to penetrate. Not only as far as in the understanding, but seeing how to extract evidence from particular evidences. How to extract different understandings from particular evidences. How to extract them and how the ulama is able to what? See what a lot of people are not able. And that's something that, like we said, is a gift in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only gives to certain people. Some people know how to extract what? One particular evidence, understanding from an evidence, or numerous what? Numerous understandings from a particular evidence. But you'll find a great Imam, rahimahullah, wa jazahullahu anna wa an muslimin khayr al-jaza', you'll find that he really what? Knows exactly of what evidences in particular parts of him picking out certain what? Masail or different types of issues that are drawn out from those evidences and then making them in the last part of the chapter. So that's very important, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, in regards to having the student knowledge acclimated, you be focused. Where's your book? In regards to what we have been discussing in the last part of the chapter. So number one, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, we now have actually concluded the chapter in which we're going to focus on the Masail. So first, we already talked about, number one, we discussed the tafsir of the ayah, Surah Al-Najm. That's been discussed, right everyone? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do you see Lat and Uzza and Manat? To the end of the ayah, right everyone? We discussed that. طيب. What needs to be understood is how, if one was to, a person or a Muslim was to come and ask you, how do we know there's evidence to prove that seeking blessing with a tree or rock is impermissible? What would you say? These are the reason why we tell our brothers and our sisters to go home, read the evidences, and if you can, memorize the evidence. Memorize it. So when it's time to teach your family, it's time to teach your children, and it's also maybe even a form of da'wah to people who do not know. And you have the opportunity, you can take the advantage of a particular situation that you're in order to enlighten the person. So have these ayats and these adillah, these evidences memorized, these proofs memorized. And if one is able, I would tell brothers to memorize kitaab-attawheed. If one is able. Due to the high, not only the high status this book has, but due to the importance of it in the life of every single Muslim. This is the books in which, like we said, has change countries, change from darkness to light, where polytheism became eradicated in all of its aspects. And that's the whole foundation, the basis of the creation, is to know how to unify Allah and know what polytheism is when it comes. So you'll find, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwan, Surah An-Najm, where you find that the great Imam that he uses what? Evidences in order to extract particular what? Understandings. From them is what? The impermissibility of using a rock, seeking blessing by a rock or in a tree or anything similar to it. So he put the heading of the chapter and he used the dalil, what? Right under the heading. However, we know Ahlul Sunnah from the Manhaj al-Salafi is to what? Make and find the evidence. Then after that, ta'taqid, as they say, tastadil thumma ta'taqid. Seek the evidence, and this is something important. You find the evidence, then once you what? You find the evidence for something, then you have the what? The creed and the firm belief of that thing. Ahlul Bid'ah is the opposite. They switch it. They find what suits them, they have the firm belief, then they try to look for evidences to justify it. You understand, everyone? You'll find that as the pathways of the people of innovation. The people of innovation, they believe firmly, have the conviction in the creed, then after that they look for evidences and proofs to justify it. Not knowing that the evidence is in actuality against them. Ahlul Sunnah is the opposite. We look for the evidences and proofs. We find the evidences, we look at them, then after that, once we know the evidence is for an affair, then we firmly believe it. Right, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying, Ibi? Or Ibrahim, I'm sorry. Ibrahim, you understand what I'm saying? So we find the evidences, then we firmly believe. Ahlul Bid'ah is the opposite. What do they do? What do, Abdurrahim? They believe, then they find evidences to justify what suits their desires. You understand, everyone? So you'll find that Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, he found the evidences and proofs, then by the deep understanding that he possessed, rahimahullah, put a heading for it. The impermissibility of what? Seeking blessings by a rock and a tree and anything similar to it. And like we said, he used the ayats which were in what, everyone? In Surah An-Najm, right, everyone? Using the ayat based upon the tafsir of it. And if you look, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwas, to let you know, and also the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, he also likewise, you'll find that he had a strong basis in the knowledge of tafsir. Because the knowledge of tafsir also aids one to what? Understand those ayats properly, and it will give you a foundation to also how to utilize those evidences and proofs even more and more efficiently. So you notice that he brought the ayah, then based upon the tafsir of it, he was able to bring a ruling. He talked about what happened with Lat. Talked about what happened to Lat based upon the fact either he was a man who was what? Righteous, or a man that was what? Or based upon it being a rock. So you notice he didn't just what? Brought the ayah. He knew the tafsir of it, then he used that evidence to what? Use that as an evidence to put the ruling that goes along with the evidence. Right, everyone? So he brought the tafsir of it, which we said Lat was either a man or was what? Or was a rock that was carved. Then after that, you see that suits exactly the title of the chapter. Right, everyone? So that's the reason why we said this is to show how the Shaykh, he mentions the masail at the end of the chapter, or the issues or the different matters at the end of the chapter, to acclimate the student of knowledge to knowing how to what? Extract those understandings from the evidence, or extract the ruling from the evidence. That's the reason why he mentions these matters at the end of every chapter. So notice he said, tafsir of the ayah Surah An-Najm. The second, we also talked about ma'rifatu Surah al-amri alladhi talabu. And also likewise, what did we say? To have knowledge of the Surah al-amri alladhi talabu. Well, we already talked about this. No. just skip right down to get to the basis of it. Let's just skip ahead because we already took a lot of these from last class. Let's get down to 7. 7, what does it say in your books? Read for me, Ibrahim. 7. Smart, isn't he? Rebuke them. Jayyid. That the Prophet ﷺ did not excuse them. He says, rather, he rebuked them and he admonished them. Alayhi salatu wassalam. He said, Allahu Akbar, innaha sunan. Allah is the greatest, and that this is the ways. He is definitely, verily, these are the ways. He says, most definitely you'll follow the ways of those who came before you. And the Prophet ﷺ likewise emphasized this matter, bihadhi thalath. He emphasized this matter by these 3 affairs. So you see, ma'ashar al-ikhwa, what's this? Notice that he extracted this matter from what? From the hadith. So you say he brought the evidence and proof, then after that, extracted a ruling and a benefit from the evidence. Based upon the fact in order to show, for example, that the Prophet ﷺ did not excuse them. And we talked about last lesson, in this particular evidence, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ did not look inside of the intention of the Sahaba. He didn't look inside the intention. Rather, we know, like we talked about before, everything is based upon what appears to us. If it agrees with the kitab and sunnah openly, then what, everyone? Then, of course, then we bring that person close and we encourage them, inshallah, to also continue upon that good and that uprightness that they're upon. But if it manifests to us an action or a statement that opposes kitab and sunnah, we have not been commanded to what? Look inside of the intention of the people. Rather, we've been commanded to the best of our ability to try to advise and redirect and let that person know that that particular action is incorrect due to the fact that it's in opposition to what Allah and His Messenger have commanded. Also, likewise, we know how and to do it in a manner that's what? Acceptable. Not to be harsh, not to be in a manner that it will be offensive or a person will not accept the advice, but do it in a manner that's acceptable. Due to the fact that we know a lot of the Muslims, especially these days and times, especially here, a lot of them, if they're new shahada, they're ignorant. They don't know. They just became Muslim. And also likewise, what did it say in this particular narration? What did it say at the beginning of it? He says, وَنَحْنُ حُدَثَاهُ عَهْدَ بِكُفْرٍ. We just left off kufr. We just left off disbelief. So, they did not know. So, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and just as our brother Amir, he just benefited, and he said, but the Prophet ﷺ, even though they just left off kufr, he still was a little stern with them. He was a little bit, alayhi salatu wasalam, he used some assertiveness with them. He was a little bit assertive. And he was also likewise what? A little bit stern with them. So I told him, he said, that's because you were dealing with men back then. Those were true men. So men and people now these days are real sensitive. Especially men. Can't take anything. As soon as you say something, they, well, who are you talking to? No, you do it too. And all those other statements that we do. So these were men. So they were able to take some assertiveness, some sternness. And they knew what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ wanted good for them. However, now these days and times, you have to tread lightly with people now these days. How easy people get offended now. And how easy sensitive they are. So not to say that we don't want, we still try to be polite, and we try to be courteous when we speak to people. We take consideration their feelings, no doubt. But however, we know that based upon this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ did not look inside of their what? He didn't look to their intentions. And that's also a refutation, and it's a clarification for those who try to what? Utilize the statement, you don't know my intention. These are the type of texts that we use to show that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, when they did the action, did he say, what did you intend by it? No, he didn't. Rather, he just merely what? He corrected them. So you'll find, like we said, In this particular evidence we said, this is from those evidences and proofs that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, when something was manifest that was incorrect, or in opposition to the kitab and sunnah, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, you never find in the text to say, what did you intend? What did you intend? What did you intend? You never find it. What happened to the text, which is going to come, inshaAllah, what happened when the man said, MashaAllah wa shit, whatever Allah wills and you will. The Prophet ﷺ, did he say, what do you intend by that statement? No, the Messenger of Allah said what? أَجَعَلْتَنِي لِلَّهِ نِدًّا. Did you make me a partner along with Allah? He says, بَلْ مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ. Rather, may Allah wills alone. And another narration says, بَلْ مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ ثُمَّ شِئْتَ. Rather, whatever Allah wills, then you will. To say then. But don't say what? And. Because and يَقْتَضِي التَّشْرِيك, or يَقْتَضِي التَّشْرِيك, or الْمُشَارَكَةِ. He says, because the word and necessitates that you may join a partner with someone. But we know the word thumma is for ta'qib. But at any rate, these are the texts and narrations, ya ma'ashal ikhwas, to show what? That the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, when something was an act that manifest that was incorrect, he never used to say what? What was your niyyah? What was your intention? What was your intention? What was your intention? You'll never find none of the Sahaba saying to the Messenger of Allah either, O Messenger of Allah. It's like, you know what was in my heart? You know what was in my heart, what I intended by it? You'll never find it. The only time where you'll find it that happened is when Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, when they was making what? Dhikr in the halaqat with the rocks. When they say, oh, yo, Abu Abdurrahman, we only intended what? Good. But Abdullah ibn Mas'ud did not what? Accept it. Still reprimanded them. But at any rate, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, these are from those texts in order to bring that type of methodology in which refutes those who try to say, you don't know what so-and-so intended. Like we said, what manifests to us, that's only what Allah gave us as a duty in this dunya. To only what? Look at the actions and the statements of the people. If it agrees with kitab and sunnah, then alhamdulillah, we bring them close and we tell them to stay upright or stay steadfast upon what they're doing. And if it's something that's against and opposition, then like we said, we what? Refute it, but we try to do it and in the manner that is what? Acceptable. Not hastening towards being very stern with people in the beginning, especially if a person just became Muslim, to the end of it. But however, if a person, like we said, if it was with my brothers that I've known for years, and brothers that I've known for 10, 15 years, and they sometimes would be real stern with me, I'll be stern with them, we would know that it's done out of love. And it wasn't, and no one would be sensitive about it or crying or saying, I'm not talking to you for 2 years or nothing like that. No. Rather, we would accept it and we will what? Know that our brother did it out of what? Out of love and concern. So it says in this particular what? This particular mas'ala, it says that أَنَّ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ لَمْ يَعْذِرْهُمْ. He did not what? Excuse them. Rather, he admonished them and he said, Allahu Akbar. Verily, these are the ways. You most definitely follow those before you. And this was another an evidence to prove, inshallah, is to show how the Messenger of Allah in certain circumstances was also what? Assertive and stern. So it wasn't always what? Kind and gentle, as a lot of the people from the deviant sects will try to say. The Messenger of Allah was always soft and kind all the time. That's not correct. The Messenger of Allah was the best of those who were moderate. And he was the best of those who were what? Wise. And he knew, alayhi salatu wasalam, when to be stern, he knew when to be what? Kind and gentle. And you notice that in this particular manner, this was about the hurumat of the sanctuaries of Allah that were what? Transgressed. Because it was polytheism, which necessitated some type of what, everyone? Assertiveness in this particular what? Context. But the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew when to be stern and he knew when to be what? Knew when to be kind and gentle. Because akhlaq, or good manners and good etiquette and wise, and one being wise, is putting everything in its proper place. Because being gentle at a time when it's time to be assertive is bad akhlaq. You understand, everyone? Being stern when it's time to be gentle, being stern when it's time to be gentle is bad akhlaq. And being gentle when it's time to be stern, when it's time to be assertive, is also bad manners and it's bad etiquette. So the thing what we're trying to say is what? Knowing how to put everything in its proper place. When to be what? Gentle and kind, and to be courteous, and when to be what? Assertive. And knowing when to do it and how to do it, and putting it in its proper place. You understand, everyone? That's good manners. Good manners is knowing how to put everything in its proper place. People think good manners is just being kind, being kind, being kind, being kind, being kind, being kind. in a lot of our minds. And then some people have the opposite effect. You'll find that shaitan also allows people to be too stern, and everything. No. Having good akhlaq is knowing how to what? Knowing when and putting everything in its proper place. Like we said, being gentle at the time when it's time to be what? Stern is bad akhlaq. And being stern at a time when it's time to be gentle is bad akhlaq. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? The Messenger of Allah ﷺ was the best and the master of those, or the one who knew the best of how to put everything in its proper place. And that's good manners. Like we said. So you'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, this text, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was also what? He was stern with the Sahaba in this particular matter. Because, like we said, it was in regards to polytheism. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, you will follow the ways of those who came before you. We said in this regard, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, from the last lesson. He says that the Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum, when the Messenger of Allah told them that they will follow the ways before them, we talked about and said that Ahl Ilm in this regard mentioned and said that this was a warning. Not saying to what? To actualize, or not saying to do it or to follow the ways. Rather, this context was a warning. You understand, everyone? Like you most definitely follow the ways. But you'll find that Ahl Ilm say in this regard that what? This was a warning. Even Ibn Uthaymeen mentioned and said this was a tahdhir. It was a warning. Not to resemble them. Even in the manners of what? Aspects of worship. So this was a warning from the Messenger of Allah saying that the Muslims in the future will start to commit acts in the aspect of the fundamentals of the religion. The aspect of ibadah, of worship. Which would be similar to those who what? Who they preceded. Or similar to those who preceded them from the people of the book. Even in the aspect of worship. How many do we know from the Muslims have now fell into this? Of not only just seeking blessings by things it's not permissible to seek blessings by, but even also we talked about a couple of lessons ago, me even making tawaf around certain graves. Especially the grave in Hussein, which is in Egypt. As the grave in Hussein in Egypt, you'll find not only do they seek barakah, also they make tawaf around it. As we talked about the lesson previously, right, everyone? And we said that in Hussein in Egypt, Hussein is not even in there. This is Hussein upon that which was what? Radiyallahu anhu ardah, the grandson of the Messenger of Allah the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Hussein, when he was killed, and he was killed unjustly, and his head was cut off. Until we talked about last lesson, as the Emir or the leader of Iraq asked that his head be recovered and it be brought back to him in Iraq. And when the Emir had received his head, radiyallahu anhu ardah, and those who killed him unjustly, they will have their full repayment with Allah Ta'ala on the day of resurrection. He sent his head back to Al-Madinah. And the body of Hussein is in Al-Madinah, in the Baqi' and the graveyard, which is right next to the Masjid-Sunnah Nabawi Al-Madani, or Masjid-Sunnah Nabawiyya Al-Madaniyya, which is the Haram in Al-Madinah. There's a graveyard where a lot of the Sahaba are buried, and it's called the Baqi'. And Hussein was buried, his head was also likewise buried next to his brother Hassan. So now his body or his head is in Egypt. So let you know that people live upon what? Falsehood. And they also take the money to people, because we talked about these 4 pillars around the grave of Hussein in Egypt. And each time they stop at a pillar, they halt him and tell him to put the money in the sadaqah box. And the people what? Halt, and they stop and they say, the person that's looking after him, overseeing him, he says, Is'aw, Is'aw, Is'aw. Keep going fast, go fast. Then he'll tell them to what? To slow down at the pillar where it's time to put the money in the what? The sadaqah box. And people live upon this batil, and the person who's encouraging them to do this, and the person who's the custodians, to the end of it all, it knows that these people are living upon falsehood and that they're deceiving the people. But this is what the Messenger of Allah said in this particular narrations. You would definitely follow those of the ways what? Before you. And this is exactly what happened to the Muslims, because the Messenger of Allah لا ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى, as we know. طيب. So the third affair, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwas, we talked about the eighth one. Now go to the eighth. Read it for me, Abdurrahim.
This is a major issue which is intended that the Prophet ﷺ informed them that their request was like that of Banu Israel when they asked Musa, make for us a God.
No. We said that they mentioned, or when they asked the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, that request to what? Allow them to hang their weapons upon that tree called Dhatu Anwat. Right, everyone? Dhatu Anwat. That was the name of the tree. Dhatu Anwat. When they asked the Messenger of Allah ﷺ that, the Messenger of Allah made or gave a similarity to their statement to who? To the statement of Bani Israel. When they had asked, make for us a deity just like what? Just as they have for them that deity. Until Musa says, إِنَّكُمْ قَوْمٌ تَجْهَلُونَ إِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ مُتَبَّرٌ مَا هُمْ فِيهِ وَبَاطِلٌ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. To the end of the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about in the book about what happened to Bani Israel when they asked Musa that same request. Until even Musa himself became stern to Bani Israel in the ayah. Where he said, the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, alayhi wa ala nabiyina afdal as-salati wa tammu at-taslim, where Musa have said and became stern likewise. He says, is it said in the ayah, ij'al lana ilahan kama lahum aliha. What did Musa say? قال إنكم قوم تجهلون. Verily your people are ignorant. You understand, everyone? إنكم قوم تجهلون. To the end of the ayah. So when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ knew that the mushrikeen had hang their weapons upon that tree, they wanted to seek blessing by it. By that tree, where they thought that the tree has some type of what? Power as far as in benefiting. Now in this regard, is it major polytheism? Is it minor polytheism? This is what we'll talk about in a minute as we discussed this before. طيب. He says when they had requested this request, saying that we want the same type of blessing because the mushrikeen, the polytheists, had clung or they hung their weapons upon that tree, Dhatu Anwat, and they were seeking blessing by it. Maybe perhaps it will affect us in our battle in jihad. Maybe it will allow us to come back okay and recover. None of us will die to the end of it. Maybe this tree will allow us to take some barakah in the aspect of destroying all the enemy. We could come back with a lot more goods or a lot more of the war booty, what have you, to the end of it. However, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said this type of request of seeking barakah by hanging your weapons on the tree is the same thing of what? Of something that will what? Nullify or be in contrast to purifying your ubudiyah, your worship of Allah, and your monotheism of Allah. It'll be something that will taint your tawheed, your monotheism. So as a result of it, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ have said what? That this type of request of seeking blessing by the tree is a type of polytheism. And taking it as a deity, which is polytheism, is what? Is also clear in this matter. However, did they do it? No, they didn't. Did they now, or if a person now asks this request, did we say that that person will apostate just by merely asking or requesting? We said no. It's not the meaning of the text here. Because a person would think that what? They just merely requested. Did they apostate? Did they fall into shirk? No. However, the request was something that was similar to what Bani Israel requested, which also allowed Prophet Musa to be stern and assertive with them, right everyone? But they did not do it. They didn't fall into it. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum. It was just a mere request. So keep that in mind, everyone. Because a lot of people think of the text they fell into it. No, they didn't. They just asked. But they didn't fall into anything. Did they fall into it? Did they do it? They didn't do it. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ just what? Just revised them, redirected them, advised them, and also likewise corrected them for this mere request so they wouldn't fall into polytheism. But they didn't fall into it. طيب. So it says in the ninth, what's the ninth one, Abdurrahim?
The negation negation of this act is of the meanings of there is no God except there is no true God except Allah. This being so, and is not perceived by them.
Jayyid. So now, based upon what the great Imam, now he brought another masala, he brought another what? If you look in your books, what did it say? He brought another matter that's important. So notice that he was able to extract all these matters from these evidences, just to show how the deep fahm and understanding of the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad Abdul-Wahhab rahimahullah. The fahm ad-daqiq, that accurate, precise understanding that he was given rahimahullah. He was able to extract all these matters from these evidences. Notice from this one hadith he extracted all this. If you look at your book, all those matters he extracted from that one hadith. So another matter they extracted, what does it say, everyone? The negation of the meaning of La ilaha illallah مع دقته وخفائه على أولئك. على أولئك. He says the negation of this matter. What negation of what, everyone? The negation of seeking blessing by a tree. Negating it. Meaning not doing it. Or seeking blessing by not only the tree, not only the what? The rock, but anything of that was created. From a wall, from a stone, from dirt around a grave, whatever. Negating all that. And that seeking this type of blessing is from negating the meaning of La ilaha illallah. Right, everyone? He says, مَعَ دِقَّتِهِ وَخَفْهَائِهِ عَلَى أُولَئِكَ. He says, even though you'll find that this meaning, he says how minute it was also hidden from the Sahaba. Why is he mentioning this, ya ma'ashal ikhwa? For what reason? He says, for in this regard, for the person, when the Messenger of Allah said, La ilaha illallah. So not only is he negating the Messenger of Allah when he said this. When the Messenger of Allah, if you look in the hadith, the Messenger of Allah he says, An-nafi min ma'ina la ilaha illallah. He said, Allahu Akbar, of course. But however, we know from the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and what will also negate it, is from the actions of seeking blessings by other than Allah. If one was to fall into this. He says, فَإِنَّ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ تَنْفِي كُلَّ مَا سِوَى اللَّهِ وَتَنْفِي الْأُلُوهِيَّةَ عَمَّا سِوَى اللَّهِ. Of course, when a person says La ilaha illallah, then he's negating any type of worship other than Allah. And he's negating also likewise any type of unification of worship except and only for Allah Ta'ala. And part of this meaning of purifying one's monotheism is the affair of barakah and tabarruk. This affair is from the meaning of La ilaha illallah, of purifying it and making it what? Sincerely only for Him. That one now specifically makes barakah only for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And only for what Allah tabarak wa ta'ala allow one to seek barakah from. Meaning, for example, like we talked about, I gave numerous examples. From during the time of the Messenger of Allah, they used to seek barakah from his what? Saliva. But that day is what? His saliva, his hair to the end of it, sweat to the end of it. That's gone. That's not for anyone except for the Messenger of Allah. As that was only permissible during what? His time, alayhi salatu wasalam. We know that after the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, that none of the Sahaba sought barakah from anyone's saliva, from anyone's hair, and from anyone's sweat whatsoever. There was no one who deserved that except only the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After that, no one from the Sahaba used to seek barakah from touching or feeling anyone's sweat or obtaining anyone's sweat except only the Messenger of Allah. So that was an affair that was legislated, in which Allah allowed one to attain barakah by. But that's what? Cut. Right, everyone? And you'll find that Ahl Ilm, majority of them say that was only for the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, and not for anyone else. That was from the khususiyat, from the affairs in which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam only had. As we know that he had a lot of characteristics that were only for him. From them it was seeking barakah, from his hair, from his saliva to his sweat to the end of it. Right, everyone? Also likewise of him having more than 4 wives, and also like in other affairs. You understand, everyone? But those affairs are only specifically for him, alayhi salatu wasalam. And also likewise, like we talked about before, in regards that which is, or praying in the Masjid al-Haram or praying in it also has in it barakah. But these only affairs is only restricted to what Allah has commanded. But however, the initial affair of barakah and seeking tabarruk is from Allah and it's only for Allah. You understand, everyone? And where the affair is legislated, where one can attain barakah. Now these days, walillahi alhamd, we attain barakah from the people of knowledge due to the knowledge they disseminate. That's a way of attaining barakah, because we know, likewise, knowledge and disseminated it, in it is barakah. Right, everyone? Also, we attain barakah, we gave examples before, of reading the Mus'haf, reading the Quran, reading it, and also understanding it and attaining its meanings is also is barakah. We know by reciting it, one attains reward. And that's another way that one attains barakah. But these are through affairs of in which Allah legislated. And at the end of the day, when one recites the Mus'haf, or when one disseminates knowledge, at the end of the day, it's still only for what? It's only ibadah for Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. Right, everyone? Right, everyone? So for other than Allah? For other than Allah to be destroyed. طيب. So in this regard, that's the ninth. That he said from negation of barakah, from the meaning of La ilaha illallah, that from this affair of purifying your ubudiyya or your kalima of La ilaha illallah, then one has to only make barakah for Allah ta'ala only. And through what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated, that one can attain barakah through a specific way, or through a specific affair. Other than that, it is not permissible. Right, everyone? And also, likewise, we mentioned it said in the last part of this particular mas'ala, this matter here, that it was hidden from the Sahaba, not the kibar of Sahaba. So when one sees in this particular mas'ala, or this particular matter that was hidden from the Sahaba, meaning from those who just left off disbelief, they were new. Not the kibar of Sahaba. Not from those who were during or witnessed the wahi from the beginning, and those who are with the message of Allah longer, who are more seasoned in these matters until the point, like we said, it wouldn't be hidden from them. But however, due to them just leaving off kufr and they not having knowledge of these matters, then to show you how it was hidden from them. However, when the great Imam has said this was an incentive to let those who come after the Sahaba, that they should hasten towards learning these affairs. Not hesitating. These are the utmost of importance. There's nothing more important than learning these matters. And that once hasten towards learning them. Because if it was those who were the most righteous of creation, who are the Sahaba, radiyallahu anhu ardahum, and it was hidden from them, despite them having true understanding and great understanding of the meaning of La ilaha illallah, then those who came after them is all the more reason that they have to hasten towards learning these matters. And that one should not hesitate and put them off or procrastinate. Right, everyone? طيب. So also notice that the other benefit that the great Imam had also extracted, what did it say? Man halafa al-futya wa huwa la yahlifu illa li maslaha. To the end of it. So that, and the 10th one, what does it say, everyone? What does it say?
Swearing made by the Prophet upon the ruling, and he did not swear for a beneficial purpose.
The message of Allah sallallahu that he swore upon a futya. He swore upon a fatwa. So what is he talking about, everyone? Where's that extracted from in the Dalil? Huh? Where in the hadith? Where? There you go. There you go. Ahsant. Ya Abdul Batil. Jayd. Walladhi nafsi biyadeh. It's extracted in that particular what? That particular word in the hadith. Walladhi nafsi biyadeh. I swear by the one who my soul is in his hand. So that he's him swearing upon a what? Swearing upon a fatwa, alayhi salatu wasalam. To put more emphasis on the affair. To put more what? Emphasis on it. He swore upon it and that particular ruling that he gave. To let you know what? How great this matter is. So it says when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even the great Imam, he mentioned it, said, Ibn Uthaymeen, he said, when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا يحلف إلا لمصلحة أو دفع مضرة ومفسدة فليس مما يحلف على أي سبب يكون كما هي عادة بعض الناس. He said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ never used to swear except there was a benefit in it. There was a benefit and there was a reason behind it, and there was a benefit behind it. For he said he never used to swear except li maslahatin, except for benefit, or in order to repel, a harm, or some type of corruption. Is it clear what I'm saying? Only for a benefit, or to repel a harm, or to repel or reject some type of corruption. And he said it's not for and he said he wasn't from those who used to just swear for no reason. Wallahi, wallahi, wallahi. Or there was no reason behind it, or just as we know, which is from the ways of people these days. They're quick to swear for something that is not, something that is no truly in actuality, no benefit in it. Right, everyone? Type. You're about to call you there. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. أمر بهذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد الصيد والفضيل وبعث مقام محمود. طيب, Bismillah. This is the 11th one. This is where we stopped the lessons. He said that shirk in it is أصغر وأكبر لأنهم لم يرتدوا بهذا. This is the 11th. So you notice in the 11th one, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ikhwa, what does it say? Notice it says that polytheism فيه أصغر وأكبر. That in it is أصغر وأكبر. What do they mean by أصغر وأكبر? That polytheism is minor and is major. He says because he did not apostate by this. We said that your father Ahl Ilm had mentioned in regards to the last statement what we just said last lesson. But is it clear what minor shirk and major shirk is to everyone? What's minor polytheism? And you have which is called polytheism that is what? Open and apparent. You have polytheism that is what? Inconspicuous and hidden. Or if you want to say hidden polytheism. Type. What's the difference between major and minor? As we know, minor polytheism is what, everyone? Minor polytheism, as far as in regards to its definition, what is it? You'll find that Ahl Ilm give two statements in regards to this. What minor polytheism is. Minor polytheism is everything that the shari', meaning of what comes in kitab and sunnah, that it said that it is polytheism. And that the nusus or the text, it indicates that it is not from what? From major polytheism. I'll say it again. The shirk al-asghar is everything. You'll find that the shari', what is the shari'? Meaning the one who legislates, who is Allah in His book and in His sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that He used upon it, it is polytheism. And that the text indicate that it is not from major polytheism. Such, for example, what, everyone? Swearing by other than Allah. Swearing by other than Allah, ta'ala, in its origin is what? In its origin, in its asl, is what? It's major or minor polytheism. Swearing by other than Allah. Major? Major polytheism? In its origin. Major or minor? Major or minor? Swearing by other than Allah is what? Major or minor? It's minor in its origin. It's minor polytheism. It's minor in its origin. In its asl. Fi aslihi huwa shirk asghar. And his origin is what? It's minor polytheism. Why I keep saying in its origin? Why I keep saying that? Because it can reach the level what? Major. It can reach the level major. Especially if the person who he's swearing other than Allah by, he thinks that it has the same level, or the same characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's major. But that's why the reason why I keep saying in its origin. So you know the reason why, and this is not from myself, this is from Ahl Ilm. When they used to say this, you would notice that they're accurate in why they say certain statements. They're saying that because what? That's the origin of this particular matter. That is minor polytheism. But it can what? It can become major. Is it clear what I'm saying? So it says, for example, the text, for an example, to clarify this point, one who swears by other than Allah, then he is committed polytheism, the Prophet ﷺ said. He said, Man halafa bi ghayri Allah faqad ashrak. Whoever has sworn by other than Allah, he has committed polytheism. But like we said, shirk here in its origin is what, everyone? Is minor. But like we said, it can, or it could, is the probability that it can reach the level what? Of major. And we know that this type of polytheism in its origin does not remove one from the fold of Islam. So that's one of the statements which you'll find that Ahl Ilm give in regards to what's minor polytheism. Or, for example, what's another example? Showing off. What they call riya. Showing off. Showing off is another type of what? Major or minor? Major or minor? What do you say? We say it's minor. Jay, excellent answer. Showing off in its origin is what? It's minor polytheism. Doesn't remove from the fold of Islam. If one falls into this particular act of showing off, well, we know it's in the intention. However, if one is not careful It can be. It can reach the level of major. Especially if the person just shows off totally all the time. And every action that he does, and every affair that he does, if it's showing off, it can reach that level. But in its origin is minor. Minor polytheism. It's not major. It's minor. طيب. The second definition of minor polytheism, you'll find that Ahl-Ilm, they say in this regard, a second definition, Abdurrahim, it says, you with me? Abdullah, even though I don't see you, so you guys use that as a strategy. Hop on the chair, he doesn't see me. طيب. The second statement, or the second definition of minor polytheism is what is a means or methods for what? For major polytheism. You'll find that's the second definition of shirk asghar, minor polytheism. Anything that's a wasila, a means or methods for one to fall into major polytheism. That's the second definition. Anything that's a means or methods for one to fall into what? Major polytheism. Of course I'm going to give examples. Don't worry. To make it more clear. Even though the shara', meaning even though you'll never find kitab and sunnah that it's called shirk. Even though the kitab and sunnah did not call it polytheism. For example, a person that relies upon something, just as his reliance upon Allah. However, he did not take it as a deity. What type of polytheism is it? Right now, one's reliance. We gave examples of this. One goes to his job. I gave examples of this. Now you see why I get so many examples. طيب. One goes to his job, knows that is what his job, the one who's in charge of the job, his boss. Now is the one who's responsible for disseminating his money, giving out the money, whatever. طيب. All his provisions is all tied in, he says and thinks, so his belief in his heart, his i'timad, his reliance, and him not believing that that thing is just a reason for him to attaining his provisions. Not that the provisions, in actuality, he's the one that's in control of it. You understand? If your heart is tied into that man, or that created thing, or that creation, even if he is your boss, can be a form of what? Polytheism. But is it major? No. You understand? Minor. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Of course, in its origin. Is it clear what I'm saying? You will find that Ahl Ilm in a lot of chapters that say you never have your heart tied into the reasons. Your heart is always tied in with Allah. Never with the sabab. We already talked about this. We talked about this numerous occasions. Never tied in with the asbab. Your heart is always tied in with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similar to that, for example, a person now, he owns a business and he's relying on his business as far as it being lucrative upon how many customers that he tries to attain in order to make his business lucrative or what have you. So he goes out and of course by all means a person is supposed to do his best to try to master and also be efficient as far as taking the means. In all circumstances, no doubt. He's supposed to take the means. However, he's never supposed to be tied in with the means. His heart's not supposed to be tied in with the means. His heart's supposed to be tied in with Allah. Is it clear what I'm saying? For example, also women. This is an important affair to our dear sisters. Likewise, our dear sisters, when they marry a man in a relationship. See how these affairs are very important? These These affairs are very important. This is the reason why we talked about monotheism. And he's talking about these affairs. They're very important, they're very detrimental. You'll find that sisters, when they marry men, or when a man is married a woman, vice versa, they married a man, and their heart seems like it's tied in with the man. Tied in with the man, tied in with the man, tied in with the man. So now, as soon as that man disappoints them, what happened? Left the fold of Islam. Wow, that much power that man had over you? Whoa. No man should have that much power over you. To the point where now something goes wrong, done deal. The Islam done, to the end of it. Was your heart tied in with the man as far as to the aspect? You got to be careful. Was it natural love or was it love of worship? You have to be careful. So now your heart being relied on this man and tied in with this man, and all your khayr and everything of you as a Muslim and everything being tied into this creation. This is what we're talking about here. It could be a what? Anything that could be as a reason for you falling into polytheism in its origin being minor, but you'll never find kitaab-attawheed that is called what? Polytheism. However, you'll find that your heart being tied in generally to anything created for the aspect of worship is called what? Polytheism. Even if it's in the aspects of general affairs that take place in your life daily. Whether they be in your what? Your job. Whether it be, for example, with your wife, or with your wife with your husband, or any of these matters. One has to be careful of what? Of a person having his heart connected with a specific thing or a specific individual. Because all these affairs, like we said, in actuality, especially in regards to worship, or, like we said, even natural things that's permissible for you to indulge in, to attain your provisions or to attain your children, you're never supposed to be tied in with the means at all. But however you're supposed to look at it is a means of how you're supposed to attain the benefit. Whether or not it's the person that you love, of course, you have natural love for your spouse and your children. Everyone has natural love. That's something that's given. We're talking about now where your heart is tied into the aspect of worship, where it's tied into that particular affair. Where you think, and this is the only way I'm going to receive my provisions, is through this means of how I'm doing it. Where your heart is now tied into it. Now, if this is the case, in its origin, like we said, this is minor polytheism. Yes, it is. It's minor polytheism. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So this is why we said, just as, for example, a person who has reliance, just as this is what he mentioned. He says, "ما كان وسيلة الأكبر وإن لم يطلق الشرع عليه اسم الشرك." To the end of it. He says, مثلا أن يعتبر الإنسان على الشيء كاعتماده على الله لكنه لم يتخذه إلها فهذا شرك أصغر لأن هذا الاعتماد الذي يكون كاعتماده على الله يؤدي به في النهاية إلى الشرك الأكبر. وهذا التعريف أوسع من الأول لأن الأول يمنع أن تطلق على شيء أنه شرك إلا إذا كان لديك دليل. To the end of it. Just as we just said, he says, example, just as a person relies on something, just as he relies upon Allah, even though he did not take it as a deity, but this is minor polytheism, because this reliance can be, or it is, or it can be, just as one relies upon Allah, which in the end can lead a person to major polytheism. Can lead a person to major polytheism. He says you'll find that this second definition is more what? It's more general and more vast than the first. He says because the first we only prevented that we call something shirk unless we have a what? Evidence for it. The second one we just gave as an evidence or the definition for minor polytheism is a little bit more what? Vast in general. Because the second now makes everything that's a what? Means or methods for falling into major polytheism, what? Falling into major polytheism, what? Still called what? Minor what? Polytheism. You understand, everyone? He says, for example, Even upon this ta'rif, even upon this definition, this is why you'll find that Ahl Ilm say in generally, he says that even disobedience and sins are called minor polytheism. I mentioned this months ago. You'll find that the Salaf used to call sins minor polytheism. Yes, I mentioned this. Did I mention this right now? I mentioned this. I said you'll find some definition upon some of the Salaf used to call what? Sins minor polytheism. Minor polytheism. Why, everyone? Because the incentive upon or one falling into it is desires. Where a person gave precedence to desires over his what? Obedience to Allah and His Messenger. Generally. So you'll find that in the second evidence that we just said here, what did we just say, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa? That generally you'll find that they call sins what? Minor polytheism. Because like we said, the incentive for why one fell into it was him giving precedence to what, everyone? His desires over obedience to Allah. Jayyid? And this is the reason why you'll find that they used to call sins what, everyone? Dhunub wal ma'asi baridatul kufr. Baridatul kufr. You'll find that some, even Ahl Ilm to this day still say this, that sins is the baridatul kufr. It is the affair that will allow one to fall into disbelief if one is not careful. Baridatul kufr. It will allow him fall and eventually fall a person and take him to that aspect of disbelief if one is not careful. You understand, everyone? So, in actuality, like we said, some of the Salaf used to say that what? That sins is minor polytheism. Jayyid? That's why you even find that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did what he used to call also the one who left us salat. What did he say? He says, even the Messenger of Allah said, وَلِهَذَا أَطْلَقَ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم الشِّرْكَ عَلَى تَرِكِ الصَّلَاةِ مَعَ أَنَّهُ لَمْ يُشْرِكْ. He said, despite of this, you'll find that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called polytheism upon a person who left out the salat, even though he didn't actually do what? Polytheism, what we know. Didn't prostrate to a rock, didn't prostrate to a tree, didn't do anything. However, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said what? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, بين الرجل وبين الشرك والكفر ترك الصلاة. He said, because between a man and between what? Polytheism and disbelief is leaving off the prayer. Jayyid. So does everyone understand what minor polytheism is now? We gave a little, or the definition of it. Definition of it. The definition. Is it clear? Jayyid. We'll stop here. Ibrahim, you understood? Abdullah, even though I don't see you, you use the chair to your advantage. Is it clear, everyone? Jayyid. We'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Any questions about the lessons? The tree? Dhatu Anwat. Dhatu Anwat. It's in your book. It's in your book. Dhatu Anwat. Anwat. You even find that Ahl Ilm use that word, manutatu hadak taklif ala al-aql. You find that they said that the manut had the taklif ala al-aql. That the thing that the duty of something being binded upon one, they said manat to taklif ala aql. Manat. It comes from the word anwat. Manat means something. When you say anata, you need to means to hang something, basically. Anata, you need to. Means to hang something, basically. Right? So now, if you want to make the ism maf'ul from it, you say manat or munat or manat. Means something that's hung on something. So they just made it plural, anwat. So the thing that possesses things that's hung on it. You understand? I mean, if you want to literally translate, it doesn't really give the meaning what we're trying to say. You understand? So that's why he just said dhatu anwat. That in Arabic language means here possessor or owner. That. Or dhu. Or dhatu. And anwat means the things that are hung on something. Things that are hung on it, or the thing that hangs things that are hung on it. That's what it means. So that's why I said I just left it in Arabic, dhatu anwat. Because I can't find a word for it, the possessor of the things that has things hung on it. The possessor of the thing that has things held on or stuck on it. Because أهل العلم يسمى مناطة هذا التكليف على عقل. مناط, like basically the duties of why things are bound upon people. It now is what hangs. The hangs of the duty of things is upon the mind. Like the duties of why everybody's burning is based upon you being in your right state of mind. So now that they say مناط هذا التكليف على عقل. Never mind, forget it. Let's talk about it later. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. You guys ready?